So let's take a look at what anzovin Rig Tools' spline deformer does, specifically around the elbow region. I'm going to display a wireframe so we can see a little more clearly what it's doing to the mesh. And it is spreading the mesh on the interior of the bend in a way that not only looks good, but would be very difficult to reproduce using conventional rigging techniques. We have a couple of ways of controlling and adjusting this bend. One is to change its radius. That gives you an overall sense of how sharp or how smooth the bend is. Another is to control its spread. This is how much the mesh is being spread towards or away from the bend, and can really change the look of the deformation quite drastically. Inner smooth controls how you're compensating for volume inside the joint. You may note that this is much smoother than the volume retention you get from dual quaternion weighting, unless you paint the weights very carefully, which of course we don't have to do. Now, while these controls are very intuitive, and they let you get great results very quickly, they don't necessarily allow you to perfectly art direct the exact shape of your limb. For that, we also have a built-in pose space deformer. Over to the side I have two meshes, a reference mesh and a sculpted mesh. You can see that I've sculpted out the elbow to be a little sharper and also changed the muscles a bit. Now, if I go back and apply this to my original deformed mesh, you can see that I now have that sculpted pose attached to what at least appears to be the rotation of this joint, but importantly, it isn't quite. Because we've adapted pose-based deformation to work with anzovin Rig Tools' spline-based deformation, you can see that it is changing that pose not based off of actual rotation of the joint, but on the difference between the tangents coming into and out of the joint along the spline. This means that you're always going to have that sculpted shape react appropriately, no matter what you choose to do with the curves of the art spline.